All right, time to rise and grind with us on a great Wednesday morning, November the 13th, right here on the SportsGrid Network, Sirius XM Channel 159. I'm Donnie Rightside. He is Dubs Anderson. Over the next 3 hours, we have you covered with the hottest topics across the sports landscape. The NBA last night, sensational. The Cup has begun. Hockey underway. Did you know a team is 15-1 in the NHL right now? We'll get you caught up on that later. The NFL, always a lot of hot topics. Who's going to win the AFC? Who's going to win the NFC? MVP talk as well, Dubsy. It's a great morning to get after it. And as always, the energy is high.
What up, Donnie? I'm glad you left the cherry on top. The PGA Tour is also cooking up on today's show down at Bermuda. We go there with good friend Keith Stillman. Very excited. Happy Hump Day. Hump Day winners here on the grid. There is a lot to talk about. It is prime time in the sports and sports wagering world right now, Donnie, and I'm looking forward to breaking it all down with you over the next couple.
Bermuda sounds good. By the way, Dubs, on the East Coast, we've been having some unbelievable weather. Woke up today, 30 degrees here. It looks like it's time for the winter season to step in. And also, if you're talking Bermuda, that means we're getting some actually good vibes and good weather. We'll get to that later in the show with Keith Stewart. But let's start the 7 and 7, Dubsy, the hottest topics across the sports landscape, which does include the NBA Cup, and it's underway. But how about this? The Splash Brothers reunited for one night. It was the Golden State Warriors. It was the Dallas Mavericks. What a game it was. Golden State 120. The Dallas Mavericks 117. Clay comes back to a cheering, loud arena, and rightfully so. He did a lot of good things. 4-time champion with the Golden State Warriors, and yesterday, he was splashing three-point shots yesterday. 6 of those. The Splash Brothers. How about this on the opposite side? You take a look at Steph Curry. He knocks down 5 triples. Great night, great return, but the Golden State Warriors get the victory and improve to 9-2, which drops those Dallas Mavericks to 5-6.
I'm a warrior. Golden State playing some fantastic basketball, but this is what you want to see. It was like going back a couple of years and getting to see good friends now turn, I guess, arch rivals, but they both showed up and they both played some fantastic basketball. Clay goes 6 for 12 from beyond the arc. Steph Curry is absolutely showing
9-6 and 6 rebounds yesterday. He was awesome. And don't leave out also Luka Doncic, who had 31 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists on 13 of 27 for the floor himself. Great game last night. Golden State pulls that one out. Let's head back to the East Coast. The New York Knicks Sixers finished with 99, lose by double digits to the Knicks, and drop to 2-8 in 2024.
Big Joel Embiid showing plenty of signs of rust there. Goes for 26 minutes. So he had 26 minutes. He was out there on the floor for rust, significant time. 2 for 3 from the field and could only grab 3 boards. That wasn't good enough. He got completely outplayed when he was there by the big fella, Karl Anthony Towns. He got 13 off the glass there. And taking a look at the sluggish start here for the season, the Sixers, it is not good enough. And Joel Embiid finally serving that 3-game suspension. It is going to take him a bit of time in trying to get back up to speed. But they really need to find that stride quickly. For the Knicks, impressive performance, and they really won this one in the last 12 minutes. Cat was the standout for me.
Yeah, he certainly was. And the Sixers will eventually get it together, waiting for Maxey to come back. And again, Joel Embiid to get into shape, which is hilarious to think about, where he's been ramping up for a month to get into shape, but somehow can't run up and down the court and stay active. We'll see where he goes from that point, but it is what it is for the Sixers. Good win for the Knicks. Let's keep it in the NBA Cup. The Pistons, 123-121 over the Miami Heat. We got some things to talk about in this game, but Tyler Hero played 42 minutes. And what's up last night with the superstar shooting 27 times? Because also, Tyler Hero was 14 of 27, Dubsy, but 10 of 17 from three-point range for 40 points, and it wasn't enough in overtime. Why? Because Eric Spoelstra called a timeout that he didn't have, which cost them the basketball game. Pistons win it by 2.
1.8 seconds left on the clock.
Come on now.
Let me preface this, Donnie, by saying Eric Spoelstra is one of my favorite coaches in the league. He's an absolute mastermind, but this was a blunder. I don't know what he was thinking. Maybe too many Mai Tais at the end of regulation there, but I mean, this is a complete mismatch. I don't know what he was thinking to try and call that timeout. Ultimately losing his team the game there and losing to who? The Detroit Pistons? What? How do you do this one, Spo? Come on.
I'll tell you, you're right about that, too. It wasn't like, hey, man, coach just getting used to the NBA, not understand the timeout situation. That is an ultimate blunder, taking you way back to, 1992, when it was the North Carolina Tar Heels knocking off the Michigan Wolverines because Chris Webber called a timeout that Michigan did not have. some of those things certainly come back to light. But let's flip it over. Great segue here, Dubsy, to college basketball. We had some great games in the State Farm Champions Classic last night. Kansas, a 77-69 winner over Michigan State, and Kentucky, 77-72 over Duke. Duke scored 46 points in the opening frame. The second half, only 26. Great defense for Kentucky. Superstars were shining last night. Cooper Flagg for Duke, 26 points and 12 boards as a 17-year-old. As a 77-year-old, Hunter Dickinson, 28 points and 12 boards yesterday. How about that, Dubsy?
Yeah, 28-12. That was a big game for Hunter Dickinson. Well done for Kansas getting that big score over Michigan State. And for Kentucky, massive win here for the program in Mark Pope over the Blue Devils, who number 6 in the nation going into last night's matchup. They get bested there by the 5, Cooper Flagg, with a couple of timely misfires late in this game for the Blue Devils. But good to have a little college basketball in the mix there. They were certainly the two marquee matchups from the Tuesday night tip-off.
Yeah, big games we'll watch even early in the season. I like those. I just get, a little bit unnerved when the Baylors are taking down Sam Houston by 40 points and teams you never heard of. But you give me big games, I'm invested and I'm playing, even though Dubsy wasn't all that profitable for me last night on the NCAA hardwood. It is what it is. Coming down the stretch, Dubs, you love horse racing here. How about this one? College football rankings. The new top 12 has been released. Oregon still sitting up there as the top seed, but now sneaking in. How about the biggest mover of the week? It's Ole Miss moving up 5 spots to number 11. Season ends today. Ole Miss is in. What do we think about those college football rankings?
Yeah, the big slide there from Georgia going down the 9 spots. That was probably the standout for me. And right now, they'd be on the outside looking in towards the college football playoffs there, given that auto bid to Boise State. So that was a massive one coming across for me. No surprises, Dylan Gabriel in Oregon. I'm still buying them as the best team in the nation. I think he is the best quarterback that football we've been seeing there at a very efficient rate. A couple of big matchups coming up this week. We're in the final push towards the playoffs. So exciting, stakes are high, and we've got players for Georgia celebrating on the sidelines after copping a big loss. These are the things I don't understand about Saturday afternoons.
You're right about that, but the one thing we do know is college football has been sensational. The Georgia Bulldogs, they need some help. How about Nico Iamaleava? Might be not playing this weekend due to a concussion for Georgia. That's big news.
Yeah, absolutely. We thought it was, I guess, a pec, a shoulder injury at the time, left the game, came back in there, and we went off what Josh Heupel was telling us. He was going to be good to go, and now we're hearing that the closer we get, may not be the case there. And this is a big matchup on Saturday. Tennessee squaring off against the Bulldogs over there in Athens. They are going to need Nico at full force flying if they want to keep this thing moving in the right direction. So we have to stay up to date on that one, just being a few days out.
Last stand possibly for the Georgia Bulldogs, but guess who's back? Back again. It's Chiefs running back Isaiah Pacheco. That window's open to practice. They got a monster game versus the Buffalo Bills. If the Chiefs are undefeated and starting to get a little bit more healthy here, watch out, Chiefs.
This is a big spot. The Chiefs going off against the Bills, and something about these stats and situational trends saying don't discount Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs as dogs, but I think this is going to be a fantastic matchup coming in to Week 11. Do they really need help and to be at full health, Donnie? They're undefeated, and they've still been missing a complement of some of their best weapons. For Isaiah Pacheco, certainly would be welcome back to lead the running back room.
425 this weekend. Boy, oh boy, what a great game in the AFC. It's going to be the Buffalo Bills at home. The Bills Mafia, cold weather, taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. And could Isaiah Pacheco be returning for that football game? That certainly is something Andy Reid would love to see, and have a backfield punch with Kareem Hunt and Carson Steele. We got a lot of NBA talk to get to. The Cup, how did it go down last night? It's the early line of Stubbs and Donnie, and we'll talk about it next.
Together, both Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Graham grandma bear who owns the football team probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you. Pinching your own cheek? As I was looking down and did not know we were getting...
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Everybody loves a good homecoming, including the Early Line right on the SportsGrid Network. And we had one last night in the NBA on the West Coast. It was the Golden State Warriors and the Dallas Mavericks. You might just be watching that game and go, you know what? I just want to watch good basketball. Superstars on both sides. You got Steph Curry on one side, Luka Doncic on the other, Kyrie Irving. You get the picture. But last night, Klay returned to the Bay. And the one thing that if you are a Golden State Warriors fan, you love that. You get the standing ovation. You get all the good feels. You get all the good vibes. You also saw Klay Thompson play 34 minutes, go 7 of 17, but that means he was 6 of 12 from the three-point line for 22 points. You got the cheer. You got to have fun, but most importantly, Dubsy, you got the Golden State Warriors win 120-117. The Bay Area return of Klay was a success for Klay. I'm sure he was happy, but the Warriors went home with the victory.
Yeah, absolutely. Golden State Warriors playing some really good basketball, now sitting at 9-2 for the season. And hats off to Klay Thompson. I think this has been a fantastic move, not only for him personally, but for the Mavericks when they have got all those offensive weapons clicking in the right direction. And as we saw in the first 15 seconds there, it was Steph Curry fouling Klay, sending him to the line to grab his first couple of points there for the night, and he goes 6 for 12 from three. He puts up a 22-piece for Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. They've looked fantastic, Donnie. The basketball that we've seen to start this season, where a lot of the other teams are struggling with health and having that depth. Suddenly, this rotation is looking pretty nice for the Golden State Warriors. It's got a nice little blend of experience with a couple of these young pieces coming through. I mean, Buddy Hield's playing some really good basketball off the pine there. Wiggins is putting up some big minutes for him as well. So love what I've seen for the Golden State Warriors out of the West. They're getting set for another big tilt, and maybe they're getting set for a tilt at this NBA Cup because you want to be playing good basketball early in the season. You want to have a bit of depth there so you can lean on some of these glue guys, especially when you go on the road. This is a great win.
It was a great win. And also, take a look at the Dallas Mavericks. I thought like the offseason addition of Klay Thompson was perfect for them. You had Kyrie Irving can be ball dominant. Luka Doncic does it all. You just would love to have that spot-up knockdown shooter. And if there's any life left in Klay Thompson, that should be able to help them. He knocks down 6 triples. That's exactly what they were looking for. 31 points out of Doncic, 22 out of Thompson, and Kyrie Irving chips in with 21. But it wasn't enough because that focus is on the Golden State Warriors. Coming into the season for me, Dubsy, look, we knew they had great players, but sometimes on the end of that greatness and the run that they have, it's like, well, where do they actually fit in? Sitting at 9-2 now, 3-1 at home is really good. And also, you're getting some of those fresh legs still for Steph Curry. 35 minutes, 27 shots. Love to see that. Ends up with 37 points. We got a lot of other guys chipping in as well. 16 points out of Kuminga, 14 out of Buddy Hield, 11 out of Draymond Green, 14 out of Melton here. I like what I see out of the Golden State Warriors, and I'm very impressed at their 9-2 start.
And Donnie, we've got to admit, I mean, was it ever going to go in any other way? Like, it's the Chase Center, it's the Golden State Warriors, the Splash Brothers. There's always big brother, little brother, and it was never Klay leading the way for Steph Curry. Steph was going to do everything in his power. This one just had a little extra juice to it on a Tuesday night. They prevail in a close encounter, but he's looking fantastic from out wide. Looks like he's turned it back, and he's got a bit of fitness, bit of speed back in the legs there as well. So for the Dallas Mavericks, they're at 1-3 playing on the road, so they're going to have to get a little better once going away from Dallas. But this was a good matchup, and it was a bit of a test of the mettle for both teams considered to be playoff hopes once it's all said and done.
Splash Brothers combining once again for 11 three-point shots. We've seen that a lot in Golden State. Now you're seeing it when Golden State lines up against the Dallas Mavericks. Cup win there for the Golden State Warriors. Let's go over to another Cup game last night, which was on the East Coast. And by the way, Dubsy, driving to the airport to make a pickup yesterday, I was driving by Game Time. I wonder if the Sixers would be able to pick up a victory at Wells Fargo Arena. Absolutely not. Minus 2.5-point favorite here for the Knicks. They end up winning that game by double digits, 111-99. The focus right away, Karl Anthony Towns hit a couple three-point shots to start that game. He finishes with 21 points. OG Anunoby, 24 points. But if you said the Philadelphia 76ers, they didn't get to 100 points. It wasn't Paul George's fault. 29 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, and a block yesterday. It just wasn't good enough. Why? Because Joel Embiid wasn't good enough just yet. Seeing his first return to the court in 2024, Sixers get beat by double digits yesterday. No surprise to me, Dubsy.
Yeah, it wasn't good enough. I was a little surprised that they were in this game going into the fourth quarter, but they got completely outplayed in the final 12 minutes there. Joel Embiid, great to see him back in the mix for the 76ers that they're trying to turn around their early season struggles. They're going to have to get him up to speed, even if it means leaving him out there to get a couple of more match reps and extra minutes in, because he looked out of shape. I know he's lost a bit of weight, the big fella, in the offseason, but just missing this time, dealing with injury. You know, whenever a player's coming back from injury, they're not going to be at full tilt, even going through, the lead-ups and trying to get up to speed. So that wasn't good enough. They go missing in the fourth, outscored 33-24. Paul George, he did his best, but considering the minutes that Joel Embiid was out there on the floor, he got completely outplayed, dismantled by the big fella, Karl Anthony Towns. For JoJo, played 26 minutes, only grabbing 3 off the glass. That's not what they need from the big fella. He has to get in the paint. He has to get dominant, throw those shoulders around, and keep him in the ball game. Now 2-8 for the season, 1-4 at home. The 76ers, Philly, need to get this thing going in the right direction. It was a nice pickup for the Knicks.
Yeah, it was a good pickup for the Knicks. Also, the one thing the Sixers can do is get to the free throw line and make their free throws. 23 of 24 from the charity stripe. 96% wasn't good enough, but there are some silver linings for the Sixers. Yes, you're getting Joel Embiid back. He's going to work his way into shape. You finally saw the Paul George that you anticipated, getting him in the free agent market, shooting 19 times, 7-11 from three-point range, and scoring 29 points. But also, in the draft, Jared McCain has been very good for the Philadelphia 76ers, Dubsy, over the past couple games. The youngster played 30 minutes last night, shot 16 times, which included making 4 3-point shots and going a perfect 5 of 5 from the free throw line for 23 points. What's the alert status for you, Dubsy, on the Sixers at 2-8, or is it just the typical NBA season? They'll get it together, they'll make it to playoffs, and the only thing that matters is if they're healthy come playoff time.
Yeah, I'd give them another couple of weeks, Donnie, to see if they can, go maybe 500 for the next fortnight. But it's going to get late pretty early for the old 76ers at this point. It's a sluggish start, but of course you can excuse it having one of the best players in the association who's been missing time. So let's give them a chance. They go as far as JoJo can go and get back up to full fitness. Let's see how it plays out. But panic station's not just now. I think they got a bit of time.
We'll see how that one plays out, but also very next door there, Lincoln Financial Field, Thursday night football, Washington, Philadelphia. Wipe all those losses away, Philadelphia, because the dub is coming on Thursday night. Let's get back to the NBA Cup next, right here on the early line.
Need help with your NFL picks? Get NFL insider knowledge from Pro Football Doc, Dr. David Chow, with Sick Picks at Sports Injury Central. We reveal hidden injury advantages the sports books miss. Our doctors provide insights, and our algorithm tells you who to bet on. Spreads, player props, totals, in-game bets, Sick Picks covers it all. Get a free week now with promo code SportsGrid at SickScore.com.
right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Don?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take. I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on Sports.
Some are saying, Dubsy, that the NBA Cup is bigger than the actual championship in lifting the Larry O'Brien trophy. They're playing with a lot of passion. There's money on the line. I believe it still ends in Las Vegas once again this season. Upsets are going to happen. And boy, did we get one last night. The Atlanta Hawks 117, the Boston Celtics 116. So you might say, wait a second. The Boston Celtics are laying over 2 touchdowns in this game. What gives? How did the Hawks win? Oh, that's because Trae Young scored 40 points and had 15 three-point shots. No. That didn't happen last night. He didn't play. But I'll tell you who did play. Mr. Daniels, 28 points. Capella, 18 points. Johnson, 18 points. Off the bench, Larry Nance Jr., 19 points. Okonkwo, 15 points. A balanced attack knocks off the Super Celtics last night in NBA Cup play.
Not so super. And the Hawks could be one of the more undervalued teams at where we currently stand for a new season. And what about my Aussie Dyson Daniels with a big performance there, Donnie? They left him out there for almost the entirety. 41 minutes out on the floor, puts up a career-high 20 APs. This is a young superstar who comes up from Australia. He's still only 21. We saw him at the Pellies last season. Didn't get a lot of playing time, but this is a sign of the times. The Hawks have unearthed a couple of new-looking pieces on offense, and to take down the Boston Celtics in their building, it's a sign of the NBA, Donnie. It's such a tough beast to bet on, even going through the NBA Cup. Any team can come up with the spoils on any given night if you let them hang around long enough, and that's what happened there for Tuesday night. 117 to 116. They iced out the reigning champs late in that one.
I got to tell you, though, it's if I always love to do this. If I just gave you the box score last night, so forget about who won the basketball game, but I'm just going to give you the scoring here. Jaylen Brown, 37 points. Derek White, 31 points. And Jason Tatum, 20 points. You would think to yourself, Dubsy, that's an easy win for the Boston Celtics, maybe even a cover at that point. They don't cover, and they don't even win that basketball game. Absolutely astonishing to see some of these things play out. What you're talking about astonishment here, Eric Spoelstra forgetting how many timeouts are on the clock. They lose to the Detroit Pistons in Cup play yesterday, 123 to 121. Wasn't Tyler Hero's fault. 42 minutes, 10 of 17 from three-point range, also chipped in with 5 rebounds and 8 assists, along with 4 steals yesterday in 40 points, and they still lost to the Pistons.
Air it out, my guy. Tyler Hero over there in the Motor City. Good win here for the Pistons, 123 to 121. Needed overtime to do it, but they got a bit of good fortune. We highlighted off the top of the show, if Eric Spoelstra, considered to be one of the best minds in the business there for the Heat. They had, 1.6 seconds left on the clock in overtime. Thought he had a timeout, went to call it, had no timeouts left, is charged with a technical. It sends the Pistons to the line. They also get possession after that. So this is one of the biggest coaching blunders we've seen for I guess, a new year in the association, Donnie, and didn't think it was going to be Spo who would come up with such a, I guess, boneheaded move late in this one. But not a good evening there for the Miami Heat, for the Detroit Pistons. This is a good pickup for them, sitting at 5-7 for the season. Looking at some of the key takeaways, they're getting the bench involved. They're getting plenty of points, from some of the utility guys. Stewart, Beasley, they were pretty strong there in keeping them in the mix. And Detroit have looked a lot better from last season, so maybe they're building something up there in Pistons country.
You know what they're building now, Milwaukee? A statue to Giannis, because they got their third win of the season, 3-8, knocking off the Raptors, who dropped themselves to 2-10. Other games out there yesterday, the Suns 120, beating the Jazz 112, and also the Timberwolves late night 122-108 over the Timberwolves. Now, we do have new odds here at the FanDuel Sportsbook, Dubsy, to win the NBA Cup. Now, you'd be a fool to listen to me and say, who's going to win this, Dubsy? Like, I equate it to this. You go to Las Vegas, you walk around, you see the people on the street corners playing that game where it's like the ball, you hide it in the cup, switch it around. Hey, which cup is it in? 1, 2, or 3? That feels like me right now trying to bet and handicap and explain the NBA Cup. But today, the Knicks, plus 650. The Celtics, who were the favorites, at plus 400 after the loss yesterday, they dropped to an 8-1 price. Cavs, Warriors, Thunder, Nuggets. Dubsy, do you even approach the betting odds here? And if you do, who are you going with?
It's a tough one, and you've really got to know the groups that your team's coming out of. They're random. They're just thrown together. So make sure you're not betting on two sides who could possibly take each other out. The things I'm looking for, Donnie, the glue guys, the young guys, the teams who've got a bit of depth and obviously not dealing with too many injuries at this point of the season. Plus 650 for the Knicks. I get it. The Celtics 8-1, but I'm looking towards the teams where maybe there's a bit of extra juice on the line. I like the look of the Phoenix Suns coming out of Group B at a monster price. They're going to have to get through the Spurs, the Lakers, OKC, but I think the winner is coming out of this group. They've got off to a hot start there, and they're playing some really good basketball of where we currently stand a couple of weeks here. The NBA Cup, absolutely excited to have this back in the mix, Donnie.
Yep, I don't even know how many games they play in the NBA Cup. Why can't we just condense it to like 2 weeks for every game is an NBA Cup game? So much easier to watch it play out. You know it's easy to watch it play out? Good college basketball. We're talking about it next.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, hey, good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Quarterly, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
State Farm's Champions Classic yesterday. Sign me up. I like big events. I like big games. I like superstar talent. You had that all yesterday I believe it was in Atlanta yesterday. Kentucky Wildcats, Duke Blue Devils. This was the marquee game last night, 77-72 final, which the Kentucky Wildcats won that game in an upset over Duke. Duke looked like they had it going in the first half here, Dubs. 46 points. They had a 9-point lead at the break, only for the second half to completely flip over and saw Kentucky get into the 40s and Duke being held to 26 points. If you go superstar watching last night, obviously Cooper Flagg, probably the biggest superstar in college men's basketball. 9 of 19 from the floor, 32 minutes, finished the game with 12 rebounds and 26 points, but it wasn't enough. Credit Kentucky for coming back. Strong play all the way through. Mark Pope, this is a great way to start your season. Now sitting at 3-0 with a win over a top 10 team in the Duke Blue Devils.
Yeah, this can go a long way in building confidence to just solidify that the Kentucky Wildcats are absolutely the real deal under Mark Pope. So another, I guess, test of the medal there. But for the Blue Devils, they come up a little short late in this one. The big difference for me, Donnie, was that 3-point shooting, and it ultimately cost the Devils. They just couldn't get that spark from out wide for Kentucky. They looked better the further this game went on, outscoring them in the second 40-26 there. So a couple of big plays, a couple of big numbers, but for the Kentucky Wildcats, this was the test. This was the referendum game early in the season. Now sitting at 3-0, I thought it was fantastic for Cooper Flagg, who we know is an absolute superstar in this sport for Duke. He lived up to the billing, putting up a little 26-piece, but there were a couple of misfires late in this game, which I think could have kept Duke a little closer to the Wildcats, but it wasn't enough. They fall short in the State Farm Champions Classic, but college hoops, a couple of big matchups last night, and Kentucky Wildcats, they were the standouts.
Yeah, and by the way, you look at these games, which does make it tough because, analyzing a college basketball season, they're going to play, 35 games in the regular season schedule or so. Once you get into conference play, they'll have 10 to 15 games under their belt. You're playing in home arenas that you're used to, away arenas that you've been to before. Sometimes when you get to these NBA arenas early on, the shooting can go cold. Now, granted, Duke's going to rebound. Duke's going to have a very good season, but you play 2 cupcakes on your schedule, then you enter into a team in the top 20. You see Duke 4 of 23 from the three-point line. That's under 20%. Con Knafel is a very good three-point shooter. Through his first 2 games, raining down triples. He shot 8 of them last night, Dubsy, only made 1 of those three-point shots. So a shot here or there that could go down can help, but this is what you get. Leveling up in competition, playing in a foreign arena, sometimes it doesn't go in your favor. So credit to Kentucky Wildcats for getting through that because it looked like Duke was on their way probably to 100 points in that game, really clamped down on defense, but the shooting of Duke hurt them. What did you think, Dubsy, last night out of Cooper Flagg? The kid is a sensation. The 26 points to 12 boards you love, but coming down the stretch, 2 key turnovers when it mattered most. He turned it over.
Yeah, a couple of, misfires, a couple of miscues there, if you will. And this is what's going to happen when you lean on the kid for so much production. He's literally trying to do it all by himself. I thought he was very efficient with his shooting. Wasn't fantastic from out wide, but, was busy in the paint, picking up 12 boards there as well. I just feel like, Donnie, when you watch, a lot of the college basketball, especially early in the season, there's such an influence from the NBA to the college level. And when they get down by 4-6 points and there's 2 minutes left on the clock, I'm thinking just get in the paint, get the easy points, get the easy buckets, but they continue to fire it out wide and chase the 3-bomb to get them back in the equation. But they just don't have that skill set. The 3-point shooting is not at the same level. So it was a tough watch for me because I thought Duke did enough to stay in this ball game right up until the final minute, but ultimately just fallen a little short. But the freshman, Cooper Flagg, continues to impress, and the Blue Devils, they are the real deal. Both sides here, they're going to be right in the mix there once it's all said and done. But Kentucky, the Wildcats, absolutely roared for your Tuesday evening.
Upset there as Kentucky was the underdog, winning that game by 5 points. No upset between the Kansas Jayhawks and the Michigan State Spartans. Kansas was favored by about 5.5 to 6 points at game time. They win their game 77-69. The key ingredient here, of course, it's Hunter Dickinson. 35 minutes played yesterday, Dubsy. 13 of 21 from the floor, which included a made 3-point shot. Got to the line. Wasn't all that effective, but still scored 28 points along with those 12 rebounds. He was the key to the victory yesterday for the Kansas Jayhawks over the Spartans.
And well done to Bill Self, becoming, the winningest coach there in Kansas history. So for the number 1 team in the nation, they had to play a bit of bully ball early in this one. Michigan State, the Spartans came ready to rock and roll and give them an absolute test, which is, the scary thing about some of the college hoops on any given night. You're going to be absolutely pushed there. But ultimately, they cover that 5.5 mark, 77 to 69. 150 was that total, so just coming short of that mark. But this was a big win for the Jayhawks and another big test for the Tuesday evening in terms of the young names that we need to know as we get set at the early marker in the college hoops season. Dickinson, he is going to be an absolute problem going forward there for any of these blue chip programs trying to topple the Kansas Jayhawks. He was fantastic again there with 28 points, 13 for 21 shooting. And again, the difference, it was from out deep from beyond the arc. The Spartans just sitting at a 12% clip. That was not good enough, especially in the final couple trying to stay close.
You're right. Slow moving first half, which saw it 30 to 24. And I believe at like the 10-minute mark is like 12 to 10. But in the second half, 47 points out of Kansas, 45 points out of Michigan State. And you're right, Dubsy. As I talked about in that other game with the Duke Blue Devils, the second half of that doubleheader, they just couldn't make any shots from 3-point range. You go 3 for 24, you're basically signing your death note on that basketball game unless you were unbelievable from the floor, which means 2-point range. And you didn't get that out of the Michigan State Spartans yesterday. Solid win for the Kansas Jayhawks. Good and deep team yesterday. I just wish my guy Zeke Mayo had scored 4 more points to cash in a parlay, but he ends up going 2 of 8 from the field, 0 for 3 from 3-point range, only 6 points. Like what I saw, though, out of the Kansas Jayhawks, which flips us over to winning the national championship. Is it hard? Yes. Maybe the toughest sport to do it in because they're not 3-game sets. They're not 5-game sets. They're not 7-game sets. You lose 1 game in the tournament, you're knocked out. You got to get 7 wins in order to capture a national championship. Now, let's take a look at this. Look at the FanDuel Sportsbook on the odds market here. This is how you know where nobody knows nothing, as we like to say. Why? Duke, 12 to 1. UConn, 12 to 1. Alabama, 12 to 1. Houston, 12 to 1. Gonzaga, 12 to 1. Kansas, 12 to 1. Auburn, 12 to 1. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. You want to talk about a toss-up, Dubsy? You're getting it right now, college basketball.
It feels like they're in the odds room, in the risk room. The odds makers were saying, before we finalize this thing, let's go get a coffee. And someone has just posted it. But real talk, there's so much parity. We're still trying to decipher who are contenders, pretenders, and this board tells us all we need to know. I mean, there's plenty of experience. Championship winning programs, for the Blue Devils, still sitting there as one of the shortest prices like that. The Zags at 12 to 1, they've looked fantastic at the early part. And then Kentucky, the Wildcats, hasn't even moved after that monster win last night. So early days, and if you've got a strong opinion, Donnie, I think now's the time to maybe go after if you're still getting that big price, because these numbers are going to be very agile, very volatile as we move through the next couple of weeks.
No, you're right about it. And for me, again, last night I was involved and I was betting and trying to handicap those games. But it's hard to say, okay, how did Cooper Flagg do against Maine? How did so-and-so do against, a directional school? Once you start to level up in competition on that neutral court, it does get tougher. But also keep in mind, neutral courts come at the end of the season when you're going through the conference tournament. They're usually played at a neutral site as well, obviously, as March Madness itself. It's hard for me to digress of which team is the best, but you're right. If you have a good feel on some of these teams, these numbers are going to go markedly lower. If Duke rips off 10 straight victories, I guarantee you right now, Dubsy, they're not at a 12 to 1 price. They're probably looking at more of a 6 to 1 price or a 5 to 1 price before they get into conference play. It's fun to watch you play out and learn the names of all the athletes, Dubsy. How do you handle I call it the silly season. You get a lot of these crazy games, crazy matchups in the Bahamas, in Hawaii, and in smaller gyms, and ballrooms here that they make look like an NBA/NCAA arena. How do you handle the early betting? I find it tough.
You got to factor that in, Donnie. These are, they're not kids, but they're young athletes with not a lot of experience, especially playing out of their environment or out of their familiar settings. I mean, some of these setups, there's not even, a grandstand behind the rim. For me, it'd be very off-settling. So look towards the kids who have done it all before. The big programs, they're coming back again.
Keep that same energy. The college football playoff round 2 last night. Let's see where these teams line up.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little,
"Oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you."
Quarterly, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was
that's what your
looking down
grandma
and did
does,
not
right?
know we were getting.
"Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben."
like that's what your grandma will do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
College football playoff rankings here, and everybody knows it's just a show that you watch to see where the standings are. It means absolutely nothing. Teams will decide this on the field, and we get it. But there is theater that we like to go over, Dubsy. And as you take a look at the college football playoff rankings as it stands right now, the top 12, Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Indiana, BYU, Tennessee, Notre Dame, Miami, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Georgia. Let's start here with the biggest movers shifting down. You see, losing 5 places. The Miami Hurricanes, which they were sitting up there in the 4th spot, now dropped to the 9th spot. Why? They lost to the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. You take a look at moving 9 spots lower, the Georgia Bulldogs plummeting to that 12th spot here. And also way down at 22, the LSU Tigers dropped 7 spots after getting hammered by the Alabama Crimson Tide. So teams that are still eligible, quote unquote, to make the playoff, which means the top 12, Miami drops down to 9th. Georgia hanging on by a thread at number 12, Dubsy.
Yeah, exciting times in the college football landscape. Less than a month out from the big new look playoffs, if you will. So a lot of the teams right on the bubble. I guess the big slide, the big drop for me was Georgia. That was a massive loss from what we saw last Saturday. It wasn't a good response. Now with 2 losses for the year, that's certainly going to be working against them in bold fashion, even having the 2 of the last 3 there. So as you highlighted, Donnie, this doesn't mean everything, but it just gives us a little more insight to how the committee's approaching wins, losses, and ultimately a couple of those style points, because we have some massive matchups ahead coming up this weekend in particular. And you don't want to be on the outside looking in for programs like LSU. It's tough trying to regain stock and momentum. That tells us everything of where they've catapulted to. And at the top of the board, absolutely agree with it. I think Oregon have been the best team. It'd certainly be a tough ask in trying to move them out of that spot. But a couple of big programs who delivered last week, Donnie, but a couple with a lot to play for looking ahead to this Saturday.
Certainly is. And maybe Joe Frizo can let me know in my ear, because I don't watch the college football playoff show, but correct me if I'm wrong. I see the top 12 out there. If the season ended today, would Georgia not be out because Boise State would claim that 12th spot? Is that correct?
I believe so, yeah.
And he says yes, and Dubsy also confirming that as well. Now, answer me this question. If we do have the college football ranking show, why is Boise State not just automatically sitting at 12 then if they're 13th? Does that not make sense? Like, why would you have a top 12 that includes Georgia, knowing that if the season ended today, they're not in the top 12? How about that, Dubsy? Can we get clarification on that? Deal with that.
No, I guess they're saying they're the 12th best team in the nation right now, but it's not the 12 who will be playing in the college football playoffs. I guess it sort of highlights that it's a flawed system. I mean, right now it looks like it'd be Boise State squaring off against Ohio State, and the winner would advance to the quarterfinals to take on Miami. But I mean, it's all hypothetical from where we stand. So much is in flux. So much could absolutely change there. But it's the teams right on the cusp of being inside that top 12. You know, Ole Miss have got a lot on the line. Tennessee, I mean, massive matchup ahead for them this weekend. They're going to need Nico out there at full health if they're going to try and topple Georgia and Athens to just hold on to that 8th spot or stay inside that top 12. Bama, everything that we have seen, offense is moving in a slightly better direction. They picked up a few wow points last Saturday. And for Texas, I mean, that was probably the most polished performance we've seen from Quinn Ewers since his injury concern there returning. So that was a massive step forward for the Longhorns, sitting at number two spot there projected for the college football playoffs. So Donnie, I got a feeling that you're not the biggest fan of some of these playoff ranking shows just been a few weeks out. Let's just get to the big dance. Your record is exactly what your record tells us, Shawar, and we'll go from there.
Yes, like that's what, when I say make me commissioner, I make everybody's life simple. Like, you're going to give me a show where you tell me the top 12 teams get in, but then when the season ends, the top 12 teams don't actually get in. Like, why did we need a spot for the group of 5? If they're good enough and they're in the rankings in the top 12, Dubsy, welcome them with open arms into the college playoff. But if we end now, and let's just say today, we freeze these standings, Dubsy, we get to the end of the season, and you tell me right now, Georgia and Boise State is the argument between 12 and 13, and the odds makers go, yeah, Georgia's easily favored by double digits. Well, why is Boise getting into the college football playoff? But as I digress, it's much better than arguing who the 5th team is to the 4th team, because those would probably be legitimate teams to win a national championship. So if Boise State does get in over Georgia, I'm willing to sacrifice that because the other 11 teams that we think are going to win it. But once again, where I'm getting clarification on whether or not, hey, Georgia's number 12, congratulations, top 12 are in. Not Georgia, you're getting taken out because a team that's not nearly as good as you is going to get the bump because we had to include the group of 5. Why not include Division 2? Why not include the best Division 3 team and throw them in the top 12 here? See where I'm getting at, Dubsy? It doesn't make any sense. Give me the top 12 teams in the country. Let them play. Forget about alliances and who wins conferences. Just give me the top 12 now, Dubsy. Let's get to the point that I love here. Go ahead.
Johnny, look at the top 20. They may be trying to get eyeballs on this thing for the new look playoffs. Imagine we've got Ashton Jeanty running around there for the Boise State Broncos. What about if we've got Travis Hunter and the Sanders boys for Colorado? I mean, they're sitting in that 17 spot. Don't sleep on my Aggies, Texas A&M. They're holding it down with that 15 spot. So there's a couple of massive storylines coming in. This could be the best looking version we've ever seen for the college football playoffs, being at 12 teams. It's the first year, so very good chance of that, Donnie. Very good chance of that, but could be a great spot to see some of these young superstars in the sport, and maybe that's what they're trying to do. Tell us that there's so much parity, we can't really decipher it. Boise State's going to make it. Watch out for primetime Sanders.
See, and I love the optimisticness. And also have to understand this. Here's the reason why I get angry at this show. The standings have no bearing on anything today. Like, Georgia's not going to stay at 12 and Boise State's going to stay at 13 if both of these teams win out the rest of the season. They will let the play on the field determine it, which we talked about Tennessee and Georgia this weekend. If Georgia wins that game, they're not going to be on the bubble at number 12. So we'll work it out. And this is the design of the show, just to get people upset and put some nonsensical standings out there. But if we are looking at the bracket preview, Dubsy, Ohio State playing Boise, come on now, sign me up for that. I'd enjoy that. Penn State, Ole Miss, Indiana, Alabama, Tennessee, Notre Dame. But look, Dubsy, Ohio State versus number 12 Georgia in the cold weather. That's what we want to see. Come on now.
Give the people what they want, Donnie. Yeah. Give the people what they want. Start the playoffs now. Start the playoffs now. We don't need these fringe teams, these cellar dwellers trying to make a little final push. Boise State, you're taking up a place.
You know what else we need? Dubs. We need curtains on Jerry World, but it's curtains on a player on that football team for the rest of the season. We'll tell you who that is next.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little,
Oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations. The way you coach this football team, I'm never going to fire you.
Quarterly, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben.
like that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Obviously, the action's been so hot in hour number one. We couldn't even get to the NFL, which tells you how good those topics are today. The NBA Cup, fantastic. We talked college basketball, the Champions Classic. We just talked about the college football playoff, but there are headlines out here that we need to get to in the NFL. And if we look on Monday Night Football coming up this week, it says Houston and Dallas. Houston's on the road. They're favored by 7.5 points. I see the name C. Stroud. Like, I know who that is. That's C.J. Stroud. I see C. Rush. That doesn't mean Color Rush as the uniforms in prime time. That means Cooper Rush. Why? Dak Prescott down for the remaining parts of the regular season, getting hamstring surgery. He says, I'm going to be perfect next year. But Tubbsy, that doesn't help the Cowboys out this year. What a devastating, terrible bit of news for the Dallas Cowboys for 2024.
Things go from bad to worse. And I guess the way that we got this update from Jerry Jones as he joined the Fan there, the old radio station Tuesday afternoon, not great for Dak Prescott. I mean, got the bag in the offseason, and you look at what it's been a culmination of just misfires, a lack of chemistry. There's been no cohesion for the Dallas Cowboys on that offense. The defense has gone missing. They haven't been able to play in Jerry's world because they can't figure out a couple of curtains there in the stadium. But this is a massive blow for Dak Prescott. I mean, a quarterback who gives his absolute all, and as he should, because he's absolutely getting paid to do so. But for the Dallas Cowboys, where to next? I think this is just the start of a couple of big chips to fall over there for Jerry's world.
And by the way, like Cooper Rush, who filled in admirably the past couple of years as being a backup quarterback, showing the ability to win football games, Dubsy, watching that game on Sunday afternoon against the Philadelphia Eagles, it looked like he never played football before. Now, he's automatically named the starter for Monday Night Football, which tells you what they think about Trey Lance, a guy that they probably should be getting a look-see. He came into the game on Sunday. He looked equally as bad, but at least he has a little bit more athletic ability. The sign of the times here for Dallas. I mean, how far can they fall this year and maybe get up in the top 5 in drafting position? It looks like maybe that's a possibility. Let's keep taking a look at some injuries, but injuries in a good way. That's Isaiah Pacheco. Remember, he got injured. He's on the mend and on the way back. One of the toughest running backs in the NFL, the leader of the ground game for the Chiefs. That practice window has now been opened here. We'll see how quickly he gets back, because this week, Dubs, they're going to take on the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, and this has been a really tough matchup going against the Bills in the regular season, but when Patty Mahomes is disrespected there by the odds makers, he shows up time and time again. I feel like I'm coming on this show every week, Donnie, on a Wednesday saying this is the week that the Chiefs are going down. They've had a couple of close calls. I mean, it was the OT 2 weeks ago. The Denver Broncos should have won that football game. Unfortunately, misfiring trying to get that field goal late there. But I think it's a great matchup for the Bills. It's a great addition for the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, you're thinking, what are they going to do, with the wide receiving core? Well, welcome back in primetime DeAndre Hopkins, who's looked fantastic. Travis Kelce is playing better football each week. He's seen a lot of production, and now they've got that run game with Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco coming back into the mix, whether it's going to be for week 11 or the next one. This is a great addition to bolster the Kansas City Chiefs, because right now we're looking at the box scores saying, how are they getting these wins? They're just figuring out a way. Watch out if they can get back to full health or close enough. They're going to be a very tough out.
Yep, we'll see if they can hold up there against the Bills Mafia this weekend. Great game here. That game's going to take place 4:25, the national 4 o'clock game. If we flip it over to another game here, Dubsy, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, this is going to be greatness here. It's the AFC North supremacy on the line. Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson. But in order to contain Lamar Jackson, you need all your pass rush available. That's not going to be the case. Alex Highsmith here, out Sunday, but gets good news overall on the injury. So I guess that's good news for Pittsburgh. But boy, you'd love to have him on the other side of TJ Watt this weekend.
Yeah, so Alex Highsmith will not play. Nick Herbig will return to action there. We got that mail coming across from Mike Tomlin yesterday. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they're playing some nice-looking football. Suddenly they've got Danger Russ, who's getting that passing game unlocked vertical down the field, but absolutely going to need a lot of pressure on the other side of the ball there. So more to come on Alex Highsmith. Really didn't get a lot of information with that update. It was just Tomlin telling us he's not going to be available this week. So hopefully it's a quick turnaround, and let's see how Big Nick comes back into the fold as well.
Great atmosphere at Acrisure Stadium on Sunday afternoon. How's that game at 1 o'clock? I have no idea. That sounds like it should be a Sunday night football game. Other news out there, Seattle and San Francisco going to tangle this week for the NFC West here, trying to move up and down in the standings. How about this? Diamador Lenore, great defensive back for the 49ers. 5 years, $92 million in that back pocket, Dubs.
I really wish I was better at football, better at sports, just an athlete at some kind of sport. We knew Lenore has been that good. It was only going to be a matter of time. So this is a monster agreement, a monster extension there. 5 years, $92 million. Should just round it up. Give him 100. Why not?
Let's round up to hour number 2. More hot topics on the way right here on the early line.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Are they definitely done with Daniel Jones from this point? And any shot that Dable is off the sidelines, meaning he gets fired before next season?
They have a general manager in Joe Shane. Every big move has to get approval by ownership. So look, the bottom line is they don't know who their future quarterback is past this season. Tommy DeVito's clearly not the answer. They don't have Drew Lock's not the answer.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little,
oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations. The way you coach this football team, I'm never going to fire you.
Quarterly, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben.
Like that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.